No, I won't be.
No, I
cancelling.
won't be cancelling.
Okay.
Good evening,
Good evening, guys.
How about
How
England,
about
eh?
England, eh?
They're doing
They're
better
doing
than the
better
men.
than the men.
Anyway, we got
we got
Susan Lee with
Susan
us
Lee
tonight.
with us tonight.
Hello there.
Hello,
Good
Susan.
evening.
Hello, Susan.
Hi. Good evening.
What
I
are we
was
talking
marvelling.
What are we talking about tonight?
Well, I was thought we might talk about this because, like you're saying about how the football and the Commonwealth Games and everything, and it's so heartening to have positive role models, isn't it? Sporty people, athletes, people who are looking after themselves, people who are setting themselves goals and on track. And so I think the importance of having really good role models could be an interesting topic for tonight.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Very good.
Very good.
Because we all need a
we
role
all need a role
model,
model, don't we?
Well, I think they're inspirational, and I think when you look at some of the role models we've had in the past, which are, I don't know, not necessarily knocking people like the Kardashians, but various people who are perhaps more concerned about how they look and what they're wearing and how much acquisitions they have and how much the house costs and being photographed everywhere they go. Having an athlete who is focused and fit and disciplined is a really interesting turnabout, and I think that they are far more inspirational as role models than perhaps other people might be. So it's good to have people coming in like the women's football. Did you know women were banned from playing football in 1921? And that ban stayed in place for 51 years. So that was by the FA, by the Football Association. So they've only relatively recently been able to actually participate officially in the game. So, they've come a long way in a relatively short space of time. So, it's good to celebrate people being fit and active and caring about doing well like that.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Just show us.
Absolutely. And things like the Commonwealth Games. 5,000 athletes are taking place from 72 different countries. And there's 1,875 medals in 19 different sports. So there's an awful lot there to inspire us. So whether it's aquatics or it's football or it's hockey or whatever it might be, running, field games, sports, though all those areas, there's something that a lot of young people can watch and feel inspired by and have a go at, and it's great to have those widely distributed on the TV, and especially as it's in Birmingham this year, so it's good.
Do we need role models in our life?
I think it's always good to have somebody to look at and who shows you what's possible. So when you have people who've perhaps been had a difficult time, or they're talking about the personal challenges, or you see somebody similar to us who perhaps has come from an ordinary background, they're not privileged, they've worked hard, they've perhaps had a job as well, like some of the girls, the Lionesses, they've had jobs as well, and then they're training perhaps in the evenings and at weekends, and as they get more and more professional, they're able to dedicate themselves full time. And that, I remember back in the olden days when a lot of the footballers, the male footballers, used to have jobs in the week, and they'd train a night or two in the evening, and then they'd play the games at the weekends, and that was part of it. Nowadays, that they're regarded as super fit athletes with dietitians, masseurs, ice baths, and tight regimes. But it's good to have role models to show what's possible with people like ourselves. And, if I stick at it, I could do that. And actually, I'm not stupid for wanting it. I'm not stupid for trying. Let's have a go. And so, and there's been a lot of money since the Commonwealth Games were in Manchester as well. There's been a lot of money invested in young people's sports. It's giving them something to do with their evenings, their weekends. A lot of schools have lost their playing fields. And so now a lot of the various initiatives are actually now supporting young people being able to take up sport and engage in healthy pursuits, not just stand on street corners eating junk food, which is, obesity is a massive curse in this country. So getting people out doing things that involve fitness and paying attention to what you're eating and drinking and the hours that you keep and how you spend your time, it's huge. It's really absolutely crucial, in my opinion.
So do role models matter?
Well, role models matter in the sense that you can have a big role model like somebody who you'll never meet, which might be an athlete, which might be a tennis player, which might be somebody in business, in some area. But then I think that they're the sort of icons. They're the picture that we might have on our wall, our bedroom wall. But then I think having mentors and guides and coaches and other people, they can be role models too. And we might be looking at our parents. One of our parents might have struggled to raise us. We might have a sibling. We might have a teacher at school. We might have somebody else in a class or two above us at school, or even in business who we aspire to when we get our first or second job. And we might be thinking, I'm looking at that person. I think a role model is good in terms of triggering you, encouraging you to get out of bed in the morning because you're thinking about them. You've got a mission statement even on a tough day that actually gets you up and out of bed and doing it, because we can motivate ourselves. We don't need a role model on a good day when we're feeling inspired. But if we're feeling a bit down and we're not that enthusiastic and it's raining outside, or our friends have said come out with me tonight or whatever, we might want to be doing those things, but actually to take us off our track is something we don't want. And having a role model can keep us back on track and get us back where we want to go.
What is the purpose of a role model?
Well, I think the purpose is to inspire us when we are when we have a vision for ourselves. So it might be, you look at the dragon and on the dragon's den, and a lot of those dragons have been very happy to share their rags to riches story. So, I started in a council house. I started work on the local market. I did this and that. I was working elsewhere and I had 2-3 jobs to keep myself going. All these stories which show us that anything's possible if you put your mind to it. Richard Branson started out selling records from a phone box in, I think it was London, and then when they got a little bit more successful, they had a barge on the Thames, and him and the guys who were working with him had one suit, one proper smart suit that they hung up on the near the door, and whoever had a business meeting that day wore the suit. So when we hear these stories of the rags to riches and people who've had tough times and they've come through from difficult backgrounds, broken homes, no money, all those sort of, perhaps living on the streets for a while, all those stories help us feel, actually, I too could be there. And I think role models are very good at getting us enthused and seeing what's possible and getting us out there. That's the truth of it, So we hear of their plan in the day. We hear of the sort of things, the breakdown of what they do. We see them having perhaps a little broken, stepping stone type goals. The big picture's this, but the little stepping stone goals will get us along the way. And I think that's how we achieve it. We set ourselves those stepping stones and we look at the bigger picture, but those stepping stones help us feel motivated along the way. And that's what can inspire us and follow what they perhaps have done. Their template for success. They've walked across the field of nettles to get there, and actually they've trod a path through, and we can see the route that we perhaps need to follow.
Yeah. What are the benefits of being a role model?
I think the benefits of being a role model are that you get to share your story with other people. A lot of people who have done well for themselves and they've come through difficult times are happy, are keen to share their story, and that might just be somebody who has done well and somebody who left the school that you're at, somebody who you worked with or whatever, and you see that they've done well for themselves. So we're not necessarily talking about somebody who is an Olympic athlete or somebody who's a top business person or a multimillionaire. But I think the benefit of being a role model can be that you sometimes get ex-pupils coming back to the school that they were at and talking through their story. Somebody I know works as a self-employed social media person, and he sometimes will go to the local schools and talk about his story, about how he started with a good idea, and he plugged away at it, and some things worked and some things didn't work, and sometimes he put in a lot of hours, sometimes he was networking all the time, going to meetings, and sharing his story can inspire other people. You don't, as I say, you don't have to be a megastar or somebody in the media particularly, but by going and sharing your stories, being a role model helps you feel that you've achieved something, helps you think about what you've done, and helps you share some of the stuff that you've tried and tested, and perhaps shared it so that perhaps others don't have to endure what you did, but they can actually go through it and learn and hopefully be inspired to achieve something special for themselves.
Why is it important? Sorry. Why is it important to have look up to?
Because I think we can do it for ourselves, and we can just say, I'm doing this for me, that's my goal, that's what's important to me, that's what inspires me. But I think having somebody there who we can look up to, it's good to have somebody to check in on. It's good to have somebody to perhaps ask questions of. It's somebody good perhaps who maybe sets us a few targets or wants to share, and we talk through our problems with them and they help us feel clear about what we're doing. And like I've said before, it's all right on the good days, we can inspire ourselves, but on the days when things are a bit ropey, when we're perhaps not feeling it quite the same, and we'd rather stay in bed and have a duvet day, or we'd rather, as I said before, watch TV and all afternoon and have a dose. Sometimes it's great to do that, but if we're completely losing our path, our goals, our vision, then having a role model can be the very thing that kickstarts us back up again. And we think, actually, hang on a minute, that person who came to my school, that person who I've seen on TV, that documentary that I saw about them, those things, actually, hang on a minute, they've been there and they persevered. And so we can feel reinvigorated and re-enthused once again when we have a role model, because we're looking up to somebody who, if they're similar to us, they've been through, might not be the same story, but they've been through similar knocks and similar difficult times and similar setbacks. And actually, hang on a minute, if you hang on in there, you'll get there. And I think that's the thing. It's about, I think having a role model helps us check in on our self-talk. And self-talk can hijack us sometimes and say, don't bother, and have a day off and go out with your friends and go to the shops and mess about or whatever. And yeah, of course, sometimes we should do that. But we also need to have the things that supercharge us again and get us off the sofa and doing what it is that our vision is.
Yeah, you're right there.
Yeah.
Who are role models in today's society?
Well, I think well, there's a lot, I mean, there are people like the Kardashians who are literally famous for being famous, and they've earned a lot of money because their dad happened to be O.J. Simpson's lawyer, and that's where the Kardashians came from, and they just happened to hop on it, and why not? Clever marketing, clever ploy got them out there. But I think role models can be local people in business. They can be somebody we look up to. They can be a school teacher in today's life. They can be, we may even have a parent who we think we've seen them go through a very difficult breakup, or perhaps had a very tough time and come out the other side. And we may admire and respect and value them and what they've done for us. But then you've also got the higher profile people who might be the Stormzys and the musicians and the actors and actresses and the the athletes, or it might be a role, somebody we've read in a book, or an acting part in a film, and we might look at that and say, wow, that inspires me. So it's something that we can relate to, that we feel, has done it in a way that we can latch on to and stick with and get where we want to go. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's about following some sort of path, and we don't necessarily have to do exactly as they did. But when we see people, we hear stories, and a lot of athletes are very good these days at humanising themselves. They will talk, a lot of actors and singers and people like this will humanise themselves. They will tell their stories of their troubles with perhaps drugs or eating disorders, or they've lost a child, or they've had mental health issues, they've had a tough breakup of a relationship. A lot of role models will talk about these struggles, so we can hear and see what a lot of people have been through, and it lets us experience them as human beings, not just as somebody miles away and different and distant from us. And I think that is a good way of seeing and hearing more. I think social media's done a lot of this, where we see their stories on TikTok, or we see their stories on Insta or Facebook, or wherever it might be, Twitter, and we read and see and hear about people in a lot more detail than perhaps we ever did. And so that can give us the inspiration to say, yeah, I want to follow that person. I can do it. Let's look at their story. They can do it. After all they've been through, let me emulate them. Let me try to match that and do something similar with my life. So it's good to have role models, and they're the modern day ones, I think.
Who's a negative role model?
I think negative role models are people who can, maybe the people that we've seen who give up, who follow a lifestyle that we perhaps don't feel is particularly inspirational, who we perhaps, who perhaps discourage us. And so there may be people who say, oh, don't bother, and oh, leave it. And it could be a friend, it could be somebody in business, somebody who, just because they're a negative role model doesn't mean we have to be. Somebody could say, oh, forget your job and walk away, and I'm going to go and just live in a tent in the woods or something. And that might be somebody who, for one person, is a negative role model, but we could perhaps emulate that and say, actually, I'm not going to be... We could turn that on its head and say, well, actually, I'm not going to be as motivated by money as other people. I see what they've done. Money doesn't do it for me, but that might inspire us to do something where we're volunteering perhaps, or we take a job that's less well paid but actually suits us more. So even a negative role model can be turned on its head and come good for us if we allow it to. So again, it's about picking through. A lot of this is about stopping short, weighing up what it is you want for yourself, and then mapping out your stepping stones. Now I'm not just living my life day to day, a role model. I'm seeing these people at the Commonwealth Games or the Olympics, or doing well in business or doing well in theatre and the arts. Actually, I can see what they're doing. I'm not just going to live day to day. It is possible. I hadn't realised what was possible. It is possible. I want to get out there and have a go at it for myself. And finding your path, your stepping stones of how to achieve what you want to achieve, that's where your role model can come in and inspire you to do that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Susan.
My pleasure.
Well, England won. Commonwealth Games were doing quite well. Who inspires them? Who motivates them? We all need role model to motivate, inspire us. Or take care, everybody. Bye bye.